It's time to enter the drone zone with me, James Drone, aka Pure Ambient Drone. So hit that subscribe button, tap that bell, and get ready to synth on.
Hey there, Synth Drones. We're back with episode number 71 of Midnight Synthesizer Talk with me, James Drone, the voice of synthesizers. And tonight, I want to introduce you once again to my good old pal, Rick Marston. Rick Marston, say hi.
How's it going? How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, pretty good. So Rick and I want to try something different here. We want to have a conversation about synthesizers, and you guys can be like the fly on the wall and just kind of listen in and see if we don't hit some great topics tonight. So Rick and I were talking. What's that, Rick?
We're turning on the gas.
Yeah, we're turning on the gas for everybody out there to gas for some gear. So we were talking about Aphex Twin. You were saying about the new base station 3, I guess it would be now, or base station 2.01, whatever.
A lot of people have been complaining it's just a repackage. They just took this new upgrade that they did with the base station 2 and repackaged it and tried to resell this. And my heart and soul, it feels, the vibe of the synthesizers completely changed. Now that it has this new aesthetic, the vibe is completely different with this synth. So to me, it's like a whole new thing, just for me. But
okay.
It myself.
Well, that's a good point, because that's something I wanted to touch on tonight was the look and feel of a synthesizer. It has so much to do with inspiration. It's like, if you get a hold of an ugly synthesizer, if there's such a thing, I mean, but just something that doesn't jive, I know, because I love all synthesizers. They're all nice looking to me. But I think there's a few exceptions. But what I was saying is if a person doesn't connect visually with a synthesizer, I'm not even talking about layout, but that's important as well, too. But visually, it can impact creativity. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Completely. To me, if a synth doesn't agree to me visually, it's like I don't know, it will become a glorified paperweight. An eyesore could be a deterrent, like a broken key or something that's missing, like a bunch of missing knobs or a big gash across a keyboard space. That could be an eyesore, and it could be a deterrent, wanting to go reach over. And some people want to hide those keyboards and just, So, yeah, the aesthetics, in my opinion, is very important for synthesizers and synthesizer manufacturers today.
What do you think is one of the most appealing synthesizers visually? I'll answer real quick for me. In the vintage world, it would have to be the Poly 6 along with its big brother, little brother, however you want to say it, the mono poly. I think those are very, very attractive synthesizers. The tint of blue that's on them, the knob styles, the layout, it's very intuitive. And I just think it's a very pretty synthesizer. Well, in the vintage world, what do you think is pretty?
Well, we all know that Rick Marston is obsessed with the Roland Jupiter 8. It's the aesthetics, not only the sound about the Jupiter 8 that gets it phenomenal, but its second friend, its little brother, the Jupiter 6, is the one that really catches my eye, with the purple and the different color shades of blue and the black background. It's just the look of that keyboard, to me, is visually stunning. To other people in the vintage world, they might be more attuned to, say, a sequential circuits synthesizer. I'd say like a Mini Moog Model D, a classic like that. That would be cool. But okay, the Jupiter 6, that's cool.
And I've never owned the Jupiter series, but I have owned both the Poly 6 and the Mono Poly, so I can speak for those. I do agree that from the photos I've seen, the Jupiters are very beautiful. I guess a close runner-up or a tie would be the Juno 106, but heck, there's so many gorgeous synthesizers out there. I like the I like the Juno 106 because of the sliders. I actually like the sliders instead of just all the knobs. Sometimes it's nice just to have a slider too. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, and that's where the Jupiter series rock. Complete sliders, and I think, to be honest, with the moderns, the new Jupiter X line and the XM, they kind of missed the mark. No offense to Roland, because I really love Roland gear. I love it. I got some here in the studio. I just think that the sliders are something that can do so much more. But I also believe that in the repair jobs in the distant future, for certain types of synthesizers, the sliders could be more of an issue. So that's a lot of manufacturers went, well, let's just keep it a bunch of knobs and just have that whole base covered, you know.
Yeah, the Moog One, I'm looking at it over here, and the Moog One's got a ton of knobs on it, and that's not a problem. It would have been nice if they could have laid it out with some sliders and broke up the monotony, if you will. But I mean, listen to me complain. I mean, sliders take more room because they have to go in a direction, and that takes real estate. So I understand why they couldn't do it on the Moog ones, certainly. And if it's at the sacrifice of the looks versus the functionality, of course, the functionality has to be the first and foremost thing. What I didn't like when it came to sliders was I never could gel with the System 8 and the layout of, you know, when you go to different plug outs, of course, certain functions would dim and then others would light up. And so it would tell you what you could and couldn't use. But I never felt comfortable trying to use that, such as a 106, in the 106 plug out mode. I never felt as comfortable as I do on the real Juno 106. But of course, it's not a real Juno 106. I just never felt the layout was as comfortable.
I have been recently gassing again for the System 8 because I recently have been thinking about the Jupiter series visual since I'm working on the sample packs for the Motif Montage and Mod X line. The Jupiter series had those grabs, reach over, grab, slide, slow cutoff, up, build. For DJs, people who worked in a lot of that field or in the music industry who do a lot of DJ production, they were already used to grabbing sliders for their fader in and out kind of feel for doing their DJ work. So it was always that custom feel of, oh, that's more of my thing. So some people would lean towards the sliders. On the System 8, I just absolutely love the fact that they did choose to go more slider in a lot of areas. So growing from the JP8000 all the way up to the next series, to the System 8, you see how I guess they did listen to some people about the sliders when it came to that as a preference. So.
Well, one of the places they listened to the sliders on was the JDXA. It was loaded with sliders.
That's true.
And
yeah, that's funny. I wonder who actually made that final decision for cutoff and resonance to be either knob or slider. That was who had to do it. How did they vote it off? What was the final decision? How did it go? That's what I would love to have been a fly on the wall on that conversation in Roland Court.
Yeah, I don't know. The JDXA was a beautiful sounding synthesizer for me. I think it was one of the most frustrating synthesizers as well. Now, before I go any further with that, I just want to tell everybody watching this video, Rick and I, we don't bash gear. We may critique it. We may tell you the good and the bad from our perspective, but we never trash gear. And the reason why we don't do that is because we know one man's junk is another man's treasure in this world. And we have the utmost respect for musicians who can take the synthesizers that we didn't gel with and use them in such a way that, we never were able to. And so we give respect to people. I think when you get into trashing gear, you're actually getting into trashing musicians who own them. Some people take it very personal when you say something. Yeah, when you say something negative about a brand, and you're just dogmatic about it. And that seems to be a trend going on videos now about, horrible synthesizer, bad gear, the bad this, bad.
It's a bad trend because it's not a positive energy being released. People need positivity right now, and people are feeding like sharks on negativity, and it's horrid. When it comes down to the gear bashing, I personally have a 3-video part that I said use synthesizers to avoid, and that's only because of repair.
Yeah, that's critiquing though. Yeah,
a single manufacturer, except for I honestly did kind of go, why did you even attempt it for one brand? Because they literally did make a piece of junk that came out and was released. And unfortunately, I had so many returns when I was working in the retail world. I'm not even going to name the brand. But I mean, I have never said something negative about a brand or a model. It's just what functionalities are not working for me, and or in the future, this secondhand unit or currently a vintage piece is currently having this problem. People need to know about that before they go on eBay, Craigslist, or even and buy a piece of junk. Like there's a bunch of names we can go over, but that's a different episode altogether with you and me.
But yeah, getting back to the original point, critiquing a synth and telling the cons and the pros of a synth are far from trashing it. But here's the thing, and I've said this a dozen times in my videos. I've used a soda bottle to make percussion sounds for my Egyptian space track, and it came out great. I mean, no, that's not a synthesizer, but you know what? It's not an instrument either. And you can use anything if you are skilled enough and determined enough to make music with it.
Yes, that is exactly the truth.
And I've gone through a lot of synthesizers, not nearly as many as you have. But I do think that the JDX-A was the most frustrating for me, simply because to me, I felt like, okay, when I touch this knob or I touch this slider or I do this, this should happen. And it didn't always happen for me. Like when I was editing sounds, I must have been missing something with that thing, because it was the synthesizer that I hated and loved at the same time, only because it frustrated me so much. If that thing had a better workflow, for me, it probably has a great workflow. I just don't gel with it. But if it had, then I probably would have one. I've had 3 of those already. You've had how many? How many of you had of those?
I've only had one of those.
Okay, I thought you had it a couple of times. But there are some synthesizers you've rebought.
The JDX-I was one that I've had 3.
We talked about that today. For everyone listening and watching, guess what? I bought a JDX-I.
Yay!
It got here today. I haven't even hooked it up yet. That's how lazy I can be.
Yeah, tell them what the color is, since we've been talking about colors.
I got one of the white ones, yeah. And I think I have an overlay for it still. I believe I do.
That's a fun Roland. It's a blast.
Yeah, the white ones come with the silver titanium looking kind of faceplate, and it's fine. It's fine the way it is, but you can also put the black overlay on it and give it kind of like a black and white look, and that looks really good too. But I think I'm just going to leave the silver on it for a while.
That's really cool. I like the red design. I think that looks really sexy.
I couldn't get one of those. I was hoping, I was thinking, man, these things are great groove boxes and they can control other gear. And I used to have 2 of them. And the reason why I purchased another one is because I foolishly sold my other one. I swore I would never sell that, and I did. And I know you've made that mistake too. You sell gear that is great for your workflow.
Yes, and one of them recently was another acquisition. My 5th, ladies and gentlemen, my 5th Roland Juno DS61 has emerged in the studio. And I'll be honest, it is one of those ones, like you said, you make decisions, you make sacrifices, you'll move a piece of gear that you're actually needing or something that you really like, to take a leap of faith on a piece of gear that's the hot new buzz. But to be honest, that Juno DS could do so much stuff for me on live production, sampling, patterns that I could dump onto other synths or on my DAW. I mean, that right there is a Swiss Army knife, like the JDX-I, a groove box. It's a supernatural engine. It's got an analog thing. The JDX-I is awesome, and the Juno DS has the sample capabilities that kind of make up for the loss of the analog stuff. You can sample analog stuff and put it in there, and it's pretty good for the price.
Well, that's all we're going to have time for in this edition of Midnight Synth Talk. But join me again tomorrow. Rick will be back here with us once again as we continue our conversation on synthesizers. Until next time, I'm Pure Ambient Drone. Hit that subscribe button, tap that bell, and above all, keep calm and synth on.